So, how do you know if a property is truly profitable? So, we're going to talk about the truth about cash on cash return. So, here's something that most investors never realize. Two people can buy the same property, have the same rent, same tenants, and one earns 30% while the other barely breaks 12%. And the difference, it's not luck, it's not location, it's how they calculate their money's performance. It's called cash on cash return. And it's one of the most powerful and most understood metrics in real estate. So think of it this way. So if you're a coach of your money team, cash on cash return tells you how fast your players, your dollars, are running on the field. Cash flow tells you the score, but cash on cash tells you how efficiently your team is winning the game. It measures the cash you earn each year divided by the cash you invested before taxes, of course. So, in other words, how much return you're getting on the actual out of pocket money. So let me do a calculation example and break it down. You might want to pause this and get something to write with to so you can visually see this. So let's break it down. So you invest 2.7 million total. So that's 2.5 million down and 200,000 in closing costs. And you earn 450,000 net per year after expenses. So your cash on cash return, which is 450,000 divided by that 2.7 million dollars, you times that by 100 and you get a 16.7% cash on cash return. That means that every dollar that you invest, you're earning about 17 cents per year before taxes. Now, imagine another investor uses more leverage, only 1.5 million in cash down, but the same cash flow. So you divide that 450,000 by that 1.5 million, and that equals 30%. He's earning 30 cents per dollar invested, which is twice the performance on that same property. Now, there's four factors that affect cash on cash return, and I'm gonna go on them one by one. So one is the payment, which you talked about, which is that equity invested. And here's how it works. The more cash you put in, the lower your cash on cash, unless your cash flow increases proportionately. So, example, 100% cash deal equals stable but lower yield. Now, a leverage deal equals at higher yield but higher risk. So you get that. So depending on how much cash you put in will determine on that cash on fat cash return. So that down payment plus how you leverage that and I'll talk about against financing expenses and so forth. So number two, rental income. So every rent increases boosts the numerator. So you remember early uh, fractions, you got the numerator and the denominator. And that numerator is, in this case, is that annual cash flow. And and the denominator is that cash invested, right? So even small rental bumps, let's just say $100 per unit, can raise that annual cash on cash by several points. And why is that? Because remember now, the annual cash flow, that additional rent income boosts that gross operating income and then obviously what's all your expenses, whatever is left over, will determine that. All right. So let's talk about those expenses because that's number three. So your profit hides in the margins. So think of expenses like holes in your pocket. The smaller those holes, the more cash you keep, right? Because that NOI, that affects your cash on cash return, mainly because of that numerator again, right? All right. So number four, financing terms. So interest rates are like the heartbeat of your cash on cash return. The higher the rate, the faster your return shrinks. Why? Because think of this, like the higher the interest rate, the higher your what? The higher your payment. And that's why investors constantly refinance when rates drop to revive their cash on cash return. So those four factors again. Number one, the down payment or the money that you invested in. Number two, that rental income. So like how much the property is generating. Number three, the operating expenses. So those expenses that goes against your net your rental income that contributes to your net operating income or your cash on cash return. And then number four, that financing terms, right? Because that's not necessarily an expense because it's on more so on the balance sheet than your income statement, but obviously the interest rates, the interest is going to reduce your net operating income, right? So let's go over some real investor comparisons. So just to see. So you may want to write this down again, have a piece of paper. So the scenarios, see it in action. So we got the base case, right? So we got $450,000 annual cash flow. Then you invested $2.7 million. Dollars. You remember at the beginning, you put $2.5 million, dollars, and then you had that $200,000 closing cost. So that's that 2.7 we talked about. So that 450,000 divided by that 2.7 million dollars gives you a cash on cash return of 16.7% that we talked about. Now, here, the next one is where you can get more leverage. So you got the same annual cash flow of 450,000, but if you invested only $1.5 million, dollars, again, what's that cash on cash return? 30%, right? So almost doubles from that uh, of if you only did 1.5 versus that 2.7. And it makes sense because 2.7 is almost double of what 1.1.5 is, right? All right, and the rental increase rather, rent increase. So remember to talk about before, so that $100 per unit. Let's just say your annual cash flow, your net operating income ends at 550,000 versus 450,000. It's $100,000 more. You still have that same cash invested of $2.7 million. Dollars. Now your cash on cash return is 2.4, 20.4, right? Just for the simple fact that the rent increased, your cash on cash return is better. All right. So let's just say your expenses increase and rise. Let's say that rise. Now your annual cash flow, your net operating income will go down. Let's just say in this case, it goes down from that base case from 450,000 now to 350,000. Your cash invested is still the same at $2.7 million. Dollars. Now your cash on cash return is 13% versus the 16.7%. So so you definitely want to control your costs. Now, this is why Experienced investors don't just ask, what's the rent? They ask, how efficiently is my money multiplying? And how real estate investors use it. Real estate investors use the cash on cash return to compare different properties side by side, evaluate financing structures, so cash versus a loan, and decide when to refinance or pull equity out. And then, of course, measure performance of their portfolio year over year. And they know it's not about owning more, it's about owning smarter. So before you buy your next deal, don't just ask what the cap rate is, which I did a earlier video on there, but ask how hard is my cash working for me? Because in real estate, your money should hustle just as hard as you do. And definitely follow for more tools to help you analyze, track, and fund your next investment opportunity.